Nicole, Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. And Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Mindset Monday. Mindset Monday is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to have an interactive conversation. And today's guest is no stranger to Conversations with Nicole. Mr. Jevon Wooden of Live Not Loathe is back. I actually met this brother, pandemic time. Professor Latanya White, who is now Dr. Latanya White, was doing an eval of his business. And so I was quite drawn to the things that he had to say, and so we connected. And he was on back then it was Man Up Monday, back in October of last year. And so he's been doing great and wonderful things out there in Houston, Texas. And so we are excited and delighted to have him back here with us tonight. So we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and on the Greater Works Network on RokuTV. But as usual, we want to hear from you. Before we get started, in the comments, if you will, the Facebook and YouTube users, put your city and state in the chat so that we can give you a shout out. I see a few of you in there already. Greetings, cousin Denise in Texas. Thanks for being here. Miss Lanisha here in Tally Ho. Thank you for being here. And Mr. Ozzy Oz from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. And my mentor, Miss Cora Fullmore in Orlando. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you being here. All right. So while the others are tuning in, logging in, and checking in, hey there, Godmom from Miami. I'm going to read some of Javon's bio. So, Jevon Wooden was born and raised on the east side, not the west side, of Rochester, New York. Being from humble beginnings, he had his share of obstacles along the way to becoming a successful entrepreneur and cybersecurity professional. At the age of 17, he was arrested and faced 7 years in prison. During his time in confinement, he realized he needed to change. And that is exactly what he did. God answered his prayers, and with a second chance, Jevon went on to serve as the U.S. Army Reserve, in the U.S. Army Reserve for 12 years, deploying overseas 3 times. During his last deployment, he was awarded a Bronze Star Medal for heroic acts during a suicide bombing. He holds bachelor's in information technology from American Public University System, a master's in cybersecurity from Fordham University, and an MBA from the University of Maryland's Robert Smoot School of Business. He is a warrior against mental health issues, suffering from depression and PTSD himself, and an advocate for the Black community in the fight for racial equity. He's the founder of Live Not Loathe, a mindset and perception coaching firm focusing on helping Black men obtain the purposeful, fulfilling life they deserve. So you all help me welcome Mr. Jevon Wooden. Yay!
Hey, what's going on, Nicole?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Blessed to be here. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited about this. When you asked me, I was like, yeah, I have to do it. I have to do it. You always bring the
Absolutely.
energy. So appreciate everyone who's on tonight. Let's
Yes,
get it.
yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. Glad you're here. And so we have a few folks that weren't here last time that are now regular. So tell the peoples, who is Javon Wooden? Not what you do, but who are you?
Absolutely. I am a man of compassion, a man of love, a man who has gone through many trials and tribulations to become the man you see today. And I am someone who, when it's all said and done, when God calls me home, I want to say that I left it all on the table. I gave everything I had to make this world better.
All right. I love it. I love it. I love it. So tell folks about the name of your business, Live Not Loathe. What was the inspiration behind that name?
Yeah, so the inspiration is really representing the transformation. It's a transformation that I went through myself. You heard a bit of my story in the bio, and it's something that so many people need to experience. Right? It's going from that loathing, that hating life, feeling like things are not going to change. There's a sense of permanence there when things aren't going your way, and then just seeing that you can have agency over your life. Right? You can go from going through the motions and embracing the suck in the wrong way, as we say in the military, to actually loving what's happening and experiencing that joy that we are really all meant to experience. Right? Happiness is not something we should pursue because it comes from within. But so many of us struggle with that. So it's really representing that and just giving anyone that has listened to me or been a client, giving them that power, giving them that belief that things can change and they can have what they're looking for, the life they don't need a vacation from.
Love it. A life that they don't need a vacation from. Yes, we need that.
Absolutely.
We need that. We need that. So yes, 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 yes. All right. So you wrote a book. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
So I
indeed.
want you to talk a little bit about the book because that is the inspiration behind these topics that we're gonna cover tonight. So tell us a little bit about the book.
Yes, so I wrote a book called Own Your Kingdom: How to Control Your Mindset So You Can Control Your Destiny. And what it is, it's really an action plan. I decided on my first book, I didn't want it to be my life story. I really wanted to use some tools and implementation. So, because a lot of people will read a book, be like, oh, that's cool, and then throw it to the side and never take action. So, my book is an implementation guide. It's actions, it's covering believing in yourself, forgiving yourself, creating that accountability, finding your circle of support, just a lot of things we all need to live a better lifestyle and increase our quality of life. So the book is aptly titled Own Your Kingdom. And when I talk about the kingdom, there's a few things I'm talking about. I'm talking about mindset, I'm talking about your spiritual side, and I'm talking about your physical. When all those things are in alignment, then we're centered. We're focused, and then we can go ahead and go for the goal that we set, and we can see goals. When you're off center, you can't really see the goals, right? You're too close to the fight, and it becomes a struggle to understand that you don't have to keep toiling over and over and over again, expecting a different result. That sometimes you have to slow down so you can see the big picture. So you understand that, the answer is over here, but you way over here, but you're too close to see it. So that's really what the book is about in a nutshell.
Nice. Love it. Love it. Love it. No, that's profound and very powerful. So I'm ready and excited to dive into these topics. So forgiving yourself, believing in yourself, and accountability circles. So y'all get ready. I'm gonna listen. Y'all need to like, y'all need to share, y'all need to tag some friends
Let's
because
go.
we about to go. All right,
Let's
Javon. So
go.
let's dive in. All right. So owning your kingdom, but in the book you talk about forgiving yourself. So why is that important?
That is very important because I know from firsthand, a lot of us we hold on to so much pain, and sometimes we look at ourselves as the cause of that pain. And if it happened when you were a child, and there was really nothing you can do about what took place, you still think like, "What I could have did something. I could have did this." Right? All these things come up to mind. Well, in order to move forward, you have to forgive yourself from even thinking that. Even if there was something you could have done, maybe you made a mistake, you have to understand that that mistake is not you, right? You did
Mm,
something or it happened to you, but that mistake does not define you, right? This is a part of your story, but that is not the story. So when I talk about forgiveness, it's really about moving on. It's really about allowing yourself to get out of that past state Because if you're staying in the past, Lao Tzu said it best: you stay in the past, you're depressed, right? If you look too much in the future, then that's anxiety. But if you get in the present moment, you can find happiness. So in order to get to find that happiness, you have to make yourself lighter by letting go of that weight that you've been holding to, those burdens, those what ifs, those woulda, coulda, shouldas. You have to let it go and understand that you have control over the now. You cannot control what you did then.
So, what you are speaking on is very much so mindset driven, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it's not an easy thing.
Right. Right. So I want to pause right here. This is an interactive live. So first of all, this is the safe space for folks to communicate and express themselves. All right. So I want you all to feel safe to communicate here, but we need your active participation. So how many of you have had issue either forgiving yourself or maybe someone that's had an issue with forgiving themselves? If you will, in the comments, just give me a thumbs up, or if not, a thumbs down. If you have been successful at doing so, but if you've had an issue with forgiving yourself, let me know. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Let me know if you have. Let us know in the comments. Because, I think that first of all, there are probably more folks that have struggled with this than we maybe realize, and we might be um, feeling isolated in that regard with forgiving ourselves. And so, yeah, so they're chiming in. I see the thumbs up
Absolutely.
coming through.
Yeah, I mean that forgiveness is something that ties into so much, right?
Hmm.
See, we got some people who said they forgave themselves.
Yes.
But it's really a hard exercise, because when you're pointing at yourself, it feels different from when you're pointing at someone else.
Hmm.
All right. And the hardest thing you can do is do that introspection at work, because you discover things about yourself that you may not like. But in order to move forward and become something that you can be proud of, someone that you can love, some life that you can live and say, hey, I did that. Right. In order to get to that point, we have to look and say, you know what could I have really done? Right. There's this concept of extreme ownership. That this guy named Jocko Willink coined. He was a Navy SEAL. He
Hmm.
coined that. But extreme ownership is looking at whatever situation that's taking place and really asking yourself, what could I have really done? Right? Because oftentimes when you ask that and you look at it from a rational perspective, whatever rational is, because I know that's a relative term, right? So if you look at it from a rational perspective, from what a person in a normal state would say, you're often going to find that there was nothing you could do. You did the best you could do with the information you had at that time, right? Or, when you're in survival mode, there's only certain options and opportunities you are going to see. I myself, right? I was in survival mode. I ended up in jail facing those 7 years in prison because I thought that was the only way to do it. So a lot of us come from these circumstances where they're extenuating, and we feel like, hey, it's kill or be killed, pretty much. Or someone has told us something and it's been ingrained and instilled in us, and now we struggle with it because we see that as fact, right? And someone has told us that we were a problem child or whatever the case may be. So we really have to look at that and do what I like to talk about is inner child healing. We have to look at how we can do that, how we can look back at that moment in time where we had this terrible event take place, whatever the case may be, how we can look back at that and go back to that moment and say, hey, I forgive you, whatever it was, because
Hmm.
you do not get that power back to move forward until you take that power back from that time period. And that's something that we all have to look at.
Hmm.
And there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. Right? He talks about
Hmm.
this all the time. Right? He talks about how we hold on to our traumas, and sometimes we don't even know we're holding on to it.
So
So
pause.
it,
Yeah, you got to
oh, go
pause
ahead.
right there.
Okay, okay.
You rolling, but
I'm going. My bad. You got to tell me when to
you
stop,
going.
cause
I
yeah.
gotta stop you right there because you said you cannot. What did you say? You cannot move on in the power moving forward until say that. You got to rewind that if you can.
Man, I'm gonna say it as best as I can, because when I'm talking, I'm just going right.
I
So
know. I'm gonna have to catch the
so
replay.
yeah, but I was saying that you cannot. So that power is being held by that. I'm just gonna summarize it. The
Yeah.
power is being held by that time, that point, right? So you cannot move forward until you relinquish the power from that time period.
Mm.
right? So in order to do that, that forgiveness is paramount. Because if you never say, listen, I forgive you, that thing's always going to hold you back. Whether you say, hey, I'm good on that or not, you never did the work. So you're not good, right? And a lot of us do that. We're like, yeah, I'm good. That happened a long time ago. Well, no, because there are certain things, certain traumas that you think you stuff down, but they show up and manifest in so many other ways. Your relationships, you struggle with certain relationships. You have abandonment issues, you have anger issues, whatever the case may be, right? You have eating disorders and you don't know why. Well, it's probably because there was something you haven't addressed quite yet, and that thing's still controlling you. And the saying goes, control your mindset, control your destiny. But you cannot control your mindset if that thing is still controlling you.
Hello. Wow. Okay. Lanisha said, I most recently had to forgive myself in order to move forward from the issue. All right.
Congratulations, Lanisha. That's
Yeah,
powerful.
it is. It is. It is. So we got Nick Maddox on, and he gave us the audio, the
Body keeps
audio
the
link.
score.
Yes, for the
That's
body
what I'm
keeps.
talking about.
So thank you, Nick. All right. So forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, says Vanessa.
Absolutely. Powerful.
Okay, you dropped some gems tonight on forgiveness and the importance of forgiving ourselves. All right. Anything else you wish to share related to forgiving ourselves?
I mean, there's a lot, but I know we got some things, so we'll just
We
roll
do. So we
and
gonna
we'll
so
come
all
back if
right.
we
So
have time.
we gonna move on. All right. So believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Now, you know, when you hear this, it's like, well, I believe in myself. I got faith, right?
Hmm.
But sometimes that can be a challenge, right?
I mean, it really is like even I still have to give myself some to believe sometimes, right? Because when you're talking about belief, it's in faith, it's seeing and just having this concept that it's possible, even though you never seen it, never heard it, or never did it. And that's the important concept to remember. It's like I have this confidence, and I just want to put out the statistic that 85% of people in the world struggle with self-esteem, and that's just reported, right? That's just a reported small subset of people that they tested. I believe it's actually more. So when you think about that, think about what it takes to have this Kobe Bryant, LeBron James level of confidence. It's really about being proactive versus reactive. So
Mm.
many of us struggle with that belief because we're reacting to what happens around us rather than taking it and being proactive within us. And that's really what the difference is. And that's why even though I focus on businesses and all these other things, I always start within. And oh, go ahead. You about to
So
say
yeah,
something?
let me pause you there. And so you said 85%. That's a pretty high number. And
It's
what do
I
we
believe it's
attribute
higher.
that? What do we attribute that to?
That's attributed to a lot of things. So again, our belief systems, it comes from so many external sources, right?
Hmm.
One, your authoritative figures, right? Your parents, your teachers, anyone you who was taking care of you, your caregivers. It comes from your societal impacts. So if you were born in certain situations, circumstances, comes from your past experiences. So if you never had an opportunity to prove that you can do something, it's hard for you to believe that you can take it up a level, so you play it safe. It comes from your own physical and psychological things going on within you, right? So
Hmm.
that's another thing. So there's so many components to this. And really, when you're talking about reversing damage that has been done, especially in the Black community for centuries, it's something that you have to be intentional about, because you're not just reversing what happened to you, you're reversing what happened to generations before you that you may have not even known, right? So when you're talking about that, those traumas and those experiences is and always being bashed and degraded and denigrated, now you're talking about coming up from negative. It's not zero, right? There was no ground zero, it was negative. So for us as Black people, yes, we're starting to see people's success normally, but you also have to believe that you can do the same thing, right? It's this whole thing, like we have a confirmation bias. So we'll try something just to say we tried it, but we're like, I knew that wasn't going to work, right? It's not
Hmm.
meant for me, right? Yeah, that person can do that, but I can't do
Hmm.
that, right?
Hmm.
And that talk that we're giving ourselves, that is really damaging. So the first thing you can control is how you're speaking to yourself. If I'm always telling myself I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I never amount to nothing, first of all, I had to realize, is that my voice or is that someone else's? Because a
Mm,
lot of times that was someone else that told us something. They told us to be quiet, right? They told us we'll never amount to anything. And we carried that, we embedded that in our minds, and we think that is fact. We think that is coming from us. Well, look and challenge your belief and your value systems, because a lot of times those belief and value systems came from one of those other external sources I was telling. So we have to do the work and say, oh, what really matters to me? Right? What do I even want out of this life? What does life mean? What's my purpose? What's my goal? All these different things we have to do. And it takes a lot of work because, again, we didn't start at zero, we started in the negative. Right. So in order to hit zero, you have to look at yourself in that system that I'm talking about and question it. A lot of us
mhm,
don't want to question it. We like, hey, I was told this. That's what I'm going to go for. No,
mhm.
question it. Why? Why is that what you're following? Not just that's just the way it is, right? It has to be, is that the way I want it to be? Is that the way I want to live? Is that the person I want to be? Right. So there's a lot, and this can be a whole conversation in itself, because
It
this is one
could
of my
be.
favorite things to talk about.
It could be. I will also add too that there's a lot of negativity that we are exposed to, um,
Mhm. Absolutely.
within our families of origin and, our friend circles and that sort of thing, but also just in the media, right? In not even talking about social media. I mean,
Mhm.
just television, radio, newspaper, billboards. It's just kind of all over, right? And so there's a lot of kind of deprogramming and reprogramming that has to be done in order
Mhm.
to, get to a place of, you know, believing in yourself. Because, and especially as Black folks, there's a lot of things out there, a lot of messaging out there that is anti, right? Um, and so, it's deep. I think sometimes we don't really realize the impact that those messages have on us, but they do. And while we may think, oh, it's no big deal, it's kind of rolling off my back, but no, we are receiving those messages and sometimes internalizing those messages.
Right. But there's things you can do there too, right? We don't have
Mhm,
to take it, right? You don't have to hear it either, right?
mhm,
So it's like, for me personally, like news, I get my news. Like, I'll look at it for myself, right?
mhm,
I'm not going
mhm.
to sit there and listen to all the negativity, because even if you're listening to it passively, right, that is feeding into you, like you're talking about. Subconsciously, you're taking that negativity in, and it's going to weigh you down, and you're going to
Mhm.
feel it. And we see it all the time. We know what sells on the news, right? Controversy, crime, and there's hardly no good stuff on the news. That's what sells, right? But we have the power
Drama,
to, yeah, exactly. But we
drama.
have the power to filter what we want to see, even on social media, right? My
Mhm,
feed is not of fights and people getting killed on Facebook Live and all this stuff.
mhm.
My feed is uplifting people, positive people, and I know sometimes it sneaks in, but I have the power to say, hey, I don't want to see that anymore, right? That's
Yeah.
what I can say. And then my news, I can elect what I want to read. Like, I don't even
Mhm,
watch the news anymore, right? I'll
mhm.
just go to a news site if I want to see it, and I'll parse and say, okay, I'm interested in this article, because it's always going to be that, because that's how they get their ratings. But that also is how we get pushed down, right? So now we have to start changing our own narrative by doing things like this, right? Creating our own platforms where we're
Right.
talking about the uplifting things, creating memberships, masterminds, all these things where we can share information that is actually increasing our intellect rather than reducing it, right? Increasing our confidence rather than reducing it, right? Because a lot of us can't take that, we can't handle that. We're already carrying so many burdens that one more burden could be it. So
Mhm.
we have to understand that, and you have to know yourself. You have to know yourself enough to say, listen, I can't even listen to this no more. Let me
Mhm.
go ahead and find some positive things. Let me listen to a podcast instead. So understand, setting boundaries is one of the keys to believing. Because if you set the proper boundaries, now you have a time to build up the confidence. Now you have time to challenge yourself and be insulated from the fear of failure, because you're doing
Mhm.
it yourself, right? And then, something we're going to talk about is finding that support, finding people who aren't just belittling you at every turn, finding people who do challenge you, but
Right.
not in a negative way. They
Mm.
challenge you to be better, right? They challenge you to be your authentic self and serve unapologetically. They challenge and inspire you because they're doing it themselves, right? A lot of
Absolutely.
people are projecting these fears, and one of the reasons why we struggle so much in the Black community is that the fears of the people we care and love about are being projected on us. They're saying, "Hey, I wouldn't do that." Like for me, for example, like I joined the military, everyone's like, "Yo, you crazy? Why are you doing that?" But that's the one thing that saved me from actually going and having to serve that prison sentence. That's the
Mm.
one thing that saved me from working two jobs that I was working for the rest of my life and never living life, right? That's the one thing that saved me from being out in the streets shot or, hurt severely or whatever the case may be. Is that decision that everyone else said was crazy, right? So you might be onto something if you hear your people saying that, right? So it's like you got to be okay with that. You got to believe, there it goes again, you have to believe that that thing that you're going for is going to take you to where you want to go. And if you truly believe, you're not going to give up on that first pass. You're not going to give up just because you failed and it was hard. You're going to keep
Right.
going and finding different ways.
Okay. Well, we have a few questions that I want us to address. So Nick asks, "Can you see yourself in a good esteem without knowing your purpose?"
It's very hard to do that, Nick. Purpose drives everything, right? And if
Mm.
you don't feel you have a purpose, then what are you feeling good about, right? So purpose is going to drive that. When you know what direction you want to go in, that's what allows you to feel better about yourself. You're like, hey, I'm going for this. I'm gonna hit it, right?
Mhm.
And you serve and you walking in that every day. So if you do not know your purpose, you're gonna feel lost. You're gonna feel like you're wandering aimlessly. You're gonna feel like you're going through the motions. So you have to find your purpose.
Okay. All right. And then, okay, he had a follow-up question. He said, "Is the air you're in plentiful or rare?"
It's plentiful. Success is for everyone. Success
Mm.
is not a finite resource. We can all have it.
Hmm. He said he was taught to always ask himself that question.
I love that. I love that question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good stuff. All right, so Marjorie is on. Marjorie's in the Orlando area. She said, "When you believe in yourself, you have to be mindful of the negative talk around you regarding your belief and faith system. People will call you naive and unrealistic, which likely stems from them projecting their own insecurities. Protect your peace and ensure you align yourself with like-minded individuals who support their village."
Yeah, that's good. And I would add one part to that. Like, I also want people who challenge it. You know why? Because it
Mhm.
gets me thinking from a different perspective. If I
Mm.
don't know soundly how I got to that belief and why it's in there in the first place, then maybe I should challenge my belief. So, and that's cool with me. Like, I talk to people all the time who have opposite belief systems but it's really how they convey it, right? That's what's the key. Like, are they conveying it respectfully? And I'm not the type of person that's going to sit around and let someone try to push their agenda on me. But I will listen if we're having a conversation, right? If we're having a discussion, not an argument, but a discussion, because sometimes it gives you some gems, even if you're like, what are you talking about? Sometimes you can find the gems. So I look for that because I'm always a curious mind.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. All right. Next, Sydney wants you to explain plentiful air versus rare air. So I'm gonna let Nick do that in the chat. All right.
Okay.
So, so, or she said, or someone else. All right. Vanessa said, "Wow, I'm literally writing an essay on authenticity and power. Loving that we're talking about this." All right.
Absolutely. That word authenticity, that's the key. That's
Mm-hmm.
the key because when you serve in authenticity, I mean, what everyone else says, it doesn't hold that weight like that. Right?
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna say, yeah, that opinion is cool because really, advice is an opinion from that person's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's from their experience. That's what
Right.
advice is, right? So we have to take it, how we want to take it.
Yeah, for
Even when
sure.
I talk to my clients, I'm like, hey, you could do this or you can find another way, right? I'm just letting you know what I've seen, right? But that's not word. You can find a
Mm-hmm.
different way,
Right. You can get with this or you can get with that, right?
right?
All right. So let me just pause real quick and just for those of you who are just joining us, I am on with Mr. Jevon Wooden of Live Not Loathe, a what do you call yourself? A coaching
Yeah, so so I do mindset business coaching,
mindset business coach.
strategy, and then I also do speaking engagements and
Hmm.
done for you services as well for business owners who don't want to do their own marketing, sales, or business development processes.
Yes. So he is also an author, and we are talking about forgiving yourself, believing in yourself, and I'm sorry, um, accountability circles, which are also known as. Oftentimes we hear the word masterminds, right?
Right,
Mastermind
right.
groups, yeah, but they can be not as formal as a mastermind group.
Absolutely,
Mhm,
absolutely.
mhm,
Accountability is really, how I look at accountability is you really want to have people who you can look up to in some way, shape, or form. Right?
mm,
If I'm trying to make it out, I don't want people like who are with me. Really, I want people who are up there. Unless they want to walk the journey myself, but you will find like it's really tough to have someone who's right there with you and stuff and take them with you. A lot of people are going to resist because the change, they don't want the change, even though they're uncomfortable. They're more uncomfortable with change than they are with the situation they're in. So really, you have to find those people. Like go outside of your environment if you need to. Go to events that you normally wouldn't go to, wherever you can do. Right? We have a huge advantage this day and age, right? Where we have the internet, we can literally connect with people around the world just at with a moment's notice at our fingertips. We have all the information we need at our fingertips. So there's really no reason why we can't do what we're setting out to do. But again, like we were talking about with Nick, you have to know what you're looking to do. Right? You don't need to know the how quite yet because that's going
mhm.
to reveal itself as you start to take action. Right? There's this quote, build the plane as you fly. Right? So you have to look at it like that. You don't need everything to be perfect. There's no such thing. Right? The perfection to me is doing the best thing you can do at that moment. That's perfect. Right?
Mm.
Doing your best at that moment. So if we do that, and then not hoard it, not keep it to ourselves, but let people know. See, we think the opposite. We're like, yeah, I ain't telling nobody nothing. I'm making moves by myself. But it's really hard to grow that way. It's really hard to grow that way, and you're going to spend mad time trying to catch up when you could have just reached out to this person who already knew what you're looking to do because maybe they've done it already, and they could have expedited your success. So I look at it differently. I'm going to say like, hey, if I have an idea, I'm going to find other people who could help me make that idea come to fruition because I don't know it, right? I haven't done it, right? Clearly,
Mhm.
that's something that's out of my realm. So I would rather go ahead and find mentors, find sponsors, find people who have done that, or maybe they have a skill I haven't quite gotten yet. So collaboration is really the key when we're talking about this accountability. That's another term for it, right? When I think about accountability, accountability also equals collaboration. It's
So,
synonymous.
so I'm gonna roll this thing back because you rolling. But before we even get to the circle, right? I want to talk about accountability. So I shared this with you before we started the broadcast that
Mhm.
on the radio show that I'm a part of on Mondays, I do a mindful moment. And today I talked about accountability and accountability circles because of this show in anticipation of, and I, talked it up as well. But it prompted me to look up the definition of accountability, which talks about obligation or
Mhm.
willingness to accept responsibility for or account for your actions. And so my thoughts are around like, why do we have such an issue with being accountable? What's the problem? Like, what is it?
Yeah, well, there's a couple, right?
Okay.
One thing is you're beholden to that thing you said you were going to do, right? And that is a lot for people. They're like, "You mean I actually have to do this?"
Well, wait,
Like
wait, wait.
I
Oh,
was just talking,
wait a
right?
minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Now, wasn't it? I mean, there was a time when your word was your bond, right? So
Well,
what you said you were gonna do was what you did.
yes, yes, in certain instances, right? In certain instances, but when it comes to something that's out of your comfort zone or growth, is harder, right? If I know I did something all day every day, yeah, that's easy. But if you look at accountability, like it's even harder when it comes to yourself because it's uncomfortable, right? Chances are you're being held accountable for some metric, some like key performance indicator or something like that, or something new that you're trying to do, right? Maybe you have a project you're launching, whatever, and that's why it becomes hard because you're uncertain yourself. Like you're like, man, I don't even know. You start procrastinating and doing all these other things, and it's just that uncertainty. And it's a lot. It's that pressure, right? Some people
Mm-hmm.
perform well, some people don't. And when you start getting in your own head, like, man, I don't know if I can deliver, that's when it really becomes real. Accountability makes it real. A lot of people like to just talk because it sounds great, right? They have some good ideas, but the actual implementation and execution scare people, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you actually have to perform, it scares you. You can't just talk your way out of it. And that's why a lot of us struggle with that. It's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start this business. Well, in all facts, you started a hobby because you weren't willing to put in the time and what it took. And that's
Right.
really what it is. It's like you got to check yourself, check your ego, check your
Mm-hmm.
capabilities, if it's possible at that time. And it's like that's where I feel that it comes from. It's a lot. Like if I say I'm going to do something, you mentioned word is your bond. It's like that fear. Like you fear failure, you fear disappointment, and you fear. It depends on what you're going. There's a lot of fear that goes
Right.
on. Some people fear success, right? Some
Mm-hmm.
people have the opposite fear. So it's like that uncertainty really gets people.
Yeah.
It's like if I do this thing, what happens? Right? What's the change that takes place? And I really
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's where people struggle with that accountability, being held to actually doing something.
Indeed. All right. So Kenya has a question. She said, change scares me even when it's for the better. What are some things you tell yourself when you feel uncomfortable about change?
Absolutely, that's a great
What
question. So I
yeah.
I actually I actually asked myself some things. So I asked myself, if I do this, one, why is it important to me? If I can figure out why it's important to me, and I'm going to drill it down, I do my 5 why exercise. So I literally ask myself why 5 times. I usually figure out the reason, the root cause or root reason by the third. But I ask myself that because if it's not important enough for me to even try, then why am I wasting my time? Right. So I'm gonna ask myself that. Two, I'm gonna ask what are the possibilities if I complete this thing, right? What are the possible outcomes? I'm just going to look at it. I'm going to do an exercise. What do I want to happen? I'm going to visualize. And I'm the positive person. So I'm going to visualize the positive. Say, if I accomplish this, okay, it's going to move me to this next thing, right? This is the obstacle that's in my way, and I'm going to get it out of my way. Three, I'm going to say, what are the cons, right? If I don't do this, if I do it and I fail, what's the worst that can happen, right? Sometimes I literally have to ask myself, if I failed and I don't do this, what's the worst that can happen? And a lot of times you will find that monster was really just a mouse, and it won't be that bad if you don't hit your goal, right? Because you're still going to be further along. Discomfort is really the only place to grow, so we have to look at it that way. Like we have to understand that even if we fall a little short, we're better than we were. Yeah, it may hurt your ego, may hurt whatever. You may have lost some money, whatever the case may be, but you have lessons that you just learned. So how can you apply that? Is really the key. So I don't tell myself, I just ask myself some questions, answer those questions, and then it just has to be important. Your reasons to be great have to be more powerful than your excuses to be mediocre.
Ooh, that was good. Your
Thank you.
reasons to be great have to be more powerful than your excuses to be mediocre. That's a t-shirt, that's a hash, that's something. I
Right.
love it.
Thank
I
you.
love it. I love it. Nick said, yes, I like the 5 whys theory. That's dope.
Thanks, Nick.
Cora said, fear often gives you the drive you need to move. He said, can you talk about self-sabotage?
Yeah, that's a big one. Well, fear, and speaking of fear, it can be a driver, but it depends on the person, right? Fear can
Yeah,
cause you to retreat, or it can cause you to move forward. It's that fight or
yeah.
flight, that
It does
norepinephrine,
depend on the
epinephrine, right?
person for sure.
Yeah. So self sabotage. Again, when we talk about self sabotage, you have to find out why, because there's different reasons. I mentioned a
Mm-hmm.
couple. things people fear. And a lot of times we don't even know that we're sabotaging ourselves when we're in it, because it's like, hey, I really want this thing. Well, I'm going to procrastinate. I'm going to wait till 11th hour and I'm going to let the application deadline go. Like stuff like that. It's like, man, you really have to put the energy, and sometimes the work is more than we think it is, and we're like, you know what, I just ain't got it right now. We come up with that excuse again why we can't do it at this time, right? Or we say, oh, I work better under pressure, when you haven't even looked at what it takes to do it, and now you're at the 11th hour and you just put too much on yourself. So self-sabotage, we got to look at, is it truly self-sabotage? Is it a fear that's going on, or is it just I don't have the fortitude right now to get it done? And that's just real, right? We got to keep it real with ourselves. What is it? Why am I seeing it as self sabotage? Is it true? Because true self sabotage is like, I know that I'm screwing this up. I know that I'm messing it up. I know that I should do this thing, but I'm just not gonna do it. Right? That's that confidence piece again. That's the belief piece again, because you're holding on to something, you just don't feel like you deserve that thing. So you're gonna screw it up. You're gonna throw away the win. You're gonna throw away the game because you just like, hey, that's not meant for me. Right? Somebody else can do it who's better than me. Somebody else can do it who hasn't gone through all the things, who's not wearing all the scars that I have. So we really have to do that work so we can get over that. So we can say, listen, I deserve whatever the hell I want. Right? I live in an abundance mindset versus that scarcity mindset, because that's where the self-sabotage is coming from. It's coming from that scarcity, that lack, that negative perception that so many of us live with. So you just have to look at that and do challenge yourself to say, you know what, the next time that comes around, I'm not waiting. I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to be proactive again. I'm going to do what I need to do. So when that opportunity comes to get what I want, I'm not just going to wait for it. I'm going to create it first and foremost, but I'm also going to give everything I have. And I'm not going to stop giving everything I have until I get what I want.
Love it. Yes, I'm not going to stop giving everything I have until I get what I want. All right, my buddy, my business partner, Gerald is on here. He said reasons to be great. Cindy said, I really love this and I get it. Thank you so much for explaining.
My pleasure.
Angela said, so a man thinks as a man thinks, so is he. If he thinks with fear, his behavior will reflect scary and unintentional actions.
So
Um,
with that one, when
mhm,
when we talk about think, we have to understand where are we thinking with, right? Because you
mm,
can think subconsciously, right? We don't think we're processing, but the brain is processing over 60,000 thoughts, right? So it's
mhm,
like when you think about that, you are thinking, right? You just don't pay attention to your thoughts to control what's happening. Right? And that's really what we're trying to get to. We're looking to say, hey, the whole mindfulness and all that, that's just awareness, right?
mhm.
Being aware of your thoughts so you can catch it and say, you know what, that's not what I should be telling myself.
Yeah.
We got to say, listen, I'm listening to this negative voice that has been holding me down. I'm listening to this negative voice that has gotten me passed over for promotions or making me stay at a job I hate, whatever it is. So we have
Mhm.
to transform that and have a paradigm shift and say, you know what, I'm going to listen to this voice that tells me to go for it. I'm going to listen to that voice that tells me I have what I need, and if I don't have what I need right now, I can go get it. Right. So you have to look at it like that. Like, I need to understand where my thought processes is. Because a lot of the times that we talk about the lizard brain and the primitive brain and all that other stuff, that's where it's hitting. So
Mhm.
that fear, it never reaches the cognitive mind because it comes up through the spinal cord, right? And it hits that base brain. So it never gets here. So we never can
Mhm.
process it. So that's why I'm talking about being intentional. You can't be intentional until you understand what you're going for. And then you can't understand what you're going for until you understand your thought processes. So
Nice.
we have to place that interrupt between the thought and the emotion and the response. We got to get out of the thought emotion automatic reaction, and that's what happens to a lot of us. We just react versus respond, and there's a huge difference in that, because when you respond, you had time to think about it and you had the time to process it. So that's really what the difference between a lot of successful people and a lot of people who just never live up to what they wanted to.
Now you got a little scientific there, but I like how you kind of, broke that down in terms of
Yeah,
where it stops and how we need to process it, right?
yeah. Yeah, I nerd out on that stuff. So
That's all good. It's all good. I appreciate it. All right, Nick said, we very rarely decide what we do day to day. We are so habit driven. We forget sometimes to question our brain.
that, and a lot of us just have bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
We are, instead of letting success flow with us, we are placing so many obstacles, right? Like, so for instance, if I know I sit at this desk every day, why don't I have like what I need to do for the next day? Why don't I already write that out so I can come to the computer, have clear programs, know exactly what I'm gonna do for that day, right? Why don't I have my calendar set up where I know exactly what I want to put my energy towards? Why don't I have my journal where next to my nightstand if I write at night or when I wake up? So it's like that's what you have to think about. Why not prepare?
Mm-hmm.
Why not prepare for success so you can make it easier? Like a lot of us are struggling to go nowhere, and we have to look at that.
Did you say a lot of us are struggling to go nowhere?
Yeah, it.
Oh, wow.
A lot of us are struggling to go nowhere.
Okay. All right. Nick says, we are not our thoughts.
Hmm.
Cora says, believe in yourself, believe that it can be done, believe that you can do it. Yes.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
So
And
I will
and
go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Go
No, go
ahead.
ahead, because I'm about to transition to these circles.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was gonna say, so when I say a lot of us are struggling to go nowhere, I wanted to clarify that, right?
Hmm.
So when you think about how much effort people put in and day out, right? Just to be at a baseline, just to survive, right? When you think about that, and it's going to take that effort, you probably putting in more effort to sustain that lifestyle than it would be to branch out and try something different, right? I learned that the hard way. I was working those two jobs, right? I was like stuck. And I'm like, man, I'm 20, what was I, like 21, 22 at that time. Like there has to be something else. So instead of spending all my time in those 2 days, you know what? I took a day off and I used that day to like look at other options, and that's how I found the military. So sometimes we just need to do that. Like, give us some time to be like, you know what, this isn't working for me. I don't need to be in this dead end job. I don't need to be, going catching 5 buses to get to work. Right? There has to be something else. So we have to take that time to whatever energy we're putting into that struggle. See if we can take it and put it into the success.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Sydney says Scarlett O'Hara would say, I don't have time to think about that right now and would vow to visit it the next day. But the day for those negative and defeatist thoughts never came. All right. Procrastination kills dreams, Cora said.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's transition to these circles, right? You were already kind of touching on it in terms of, they can be informal or formal, more formal, being like masterminds. So I
Mhm.
want to ask the viewers, how many of you have participated in a mastermind group, or have had an accountability partner, more formal, not informal, but more formal. Like you said, hey, be like me saying, hey, Javon, I want you to be my accountability partner, and hold me accountable for A, B, C, D, E. Right. So we have this call every week, and I tell you how I'm progressing on it, or
Mhm.
what have you. So if you will, in the chat, again, this is a safe space, no judgment. Let us know if you have participated in an accountability, um, with the accountability partner, more formal, or in a mastermind group. And while y'all are doing that, Michael Love put up a comment. He said, I can't remember who originally said this, but Javon's philosophy reminds me of the old saying, free your mind and your and your behind will follow.
Absolutely.
Mhm,
Love
mhm.
it, Mike.
Indeed, indeed. All right. So Nick said he has not, but it sounds interesting. And so, Javon, while we're waiting for others to respond, have you participated in a mastermind group?
Yeah, I stay in a few mastermind groups, right,
Okay,
for
so you're
different things.
currently in a few.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, all
I
right.
stay in masterminds.
And tell us what you believe the benefits are to you.
So I was talking about before, having people who inspire you because they're doing things, people who are going to hold you accountable, people who are going to challenge you. Mastermind groups, that's what they do. You get into the right mastermind groups, it expedites your success and it challenges your thinking and just allows you to grow in ways you didn't think were possible. And then you're connecting with people, not like-minded individuals, but individuals who may take it in a different perspective, which allows you to grow in ways that you can't grow with just your normal circles. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very impactful, very it's a very special thing. Like if you read Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about masterminds. He talks about the power of it, right? You have people like Andrew Carnegie and those guys that joined and wanted him to do the research as they grew their businesses. That's what you're going to
Mm-hmm.
find. You're going to find people who are levels and levels ahead of you, who can go ahead and give you that mentorship and that sponsorship, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like when you find the right one, it's not a group of people just shooting, talking junk. It's people who are really utilizing their time and their days and their resources to come together and go ahead and push everyone forward, not just one person, but everyone. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the beauty of a mastermind because there's no competition, right? It's really all about collaborating and coming together for the common purpose of elevating the whole group.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Marjorie says she's joining one. Sydney wants to know, do clients count? Blowing up your phone inbox.
I don't know
No,
if that counts, Sydney.
no, Sydney, that
You
don't
might need
count.
to do something about that, Baba.
You're right. Have two different phones. Or get a Google number.
I got on my phone, I have an app, like Dialpad or Keep. If you have like a CRM, they typically
Mm-hmm.
have a phone, and I just set it where they can't even contact me at a certain time. Like, because I don't operate on that, right now thing. I operate like, hey, you get within 24 hours. If I'm on, I'll respond within, when I get back, that's when I'm responding if I'm on vacation. So
Gotcha.
you get that. You gotta
Gotcha.
set boundaries,
Sydney.
Sydney.
Yes.
Set
Boundaries, Sydney.
the
Boundaries.
boundaries.
All right. So mastermind groups, yes. And typically I'll just say for those of you who are not familiar with mastermind groups, and not that I have been a part of one, I have considered it, but normally there's well, sometimes there can be a fee that you pay. And
Yep,
I think that's, related to, people that are serious, right? Because if you're gonna
absolutely.
put some money in, and you definitely will be participating and not be tempted to bow out or miss the meetings or what have you, because again, you paying money to what, not show up, not to participate. No, you're not gonna do that, right?
Right.
All right, so tell us, Javon, I guess, you talked about some of the benefits. Any challenges related to being in a mastermind group?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it depends on the group. One,
Hmm.
so you can get a lot of like, egotistical, narcissistic people, and then it's just not going to work for you, right? So
Hmm.
the personalities really have to mesh, and then usually a mastermind group has like some sort of focus. So if the group
Hmm.
doesn't have a focus, then there's no point in joining it. So there has to be like some type of focus, whether it's like your mindset or growing your business or something like that, right? So you really have to join one that aligns with the next step or next level you're looking to reach. And
Hmm.
then if it's not the right people in there, no one's going to elevate and people are going to start dropping off. So you really have
Hmm.
to see if you can find out more information, talk to some of the current members to see if you can find out like what has been a benefit for them. Don't just look at testimonials, actually do your research if you can. Talk to the whoever the founders are, see what the premise of it was, why did they start it, what's their value
Hmm.
system, belief systems. So just do your research. But like personally, I've been in masterminds for all types of stuff, speaking, business building,
Hmm.
all types of things. And I haven't run into one yet where I was just like, oh yeah, this is trash.
Okay.
By luckily, but there are some like people that don't know what they're doing building them. So you just got to look at like all that stuff. Just do your homework, because just
Yeah.
because it started, a few months ago doesn't mean it's not actually great. And just because it's
Right.
been there for 10 years doesn't mean it's great. Sometimes people with big names start these things, and it's like, okay, this sucks. Like, so you can't look
Hmm.
at just the name. Do your research.
Indeed, indeed. Well, I wanted to mention masterminds because I know those are pretty popular as it relates to accountability circles, but there can be less formal accountability circles or partners or buddies, right? Which, sometimes it can be challenging for it to be a family member or a friend because maybe they, you know, don't want to hurt your feelings or, you know, whatever the case may be, or maybe they might be too hard on you, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and be kind of judgmental. So, any thought, any guidance as it relates to that?
Yeah, again, you want people who are actually going to challenge you, and you need to know what type of challenge you work best with. Some of us need that tough love. Some of us don't do well with that tough love. So you have to understand the best way for you to get what you need out of that group. And once you learn that, then you can even get like some partner who just you like, okay, I can work with you because you have these qualities, right? And then you have to get with people who are serious, like people who have shown that they perform, right? People who aren't going to just say, "Yeah, I got you," and then 2 months later or a week later they gone.
Mm-hmm.
So really look at their body of work and say, "Okay, I can see myself working with them because they've already accomplished this." Because
Mm-hmm.
when you're in a mastermind group, you don't. I mean, you're not there to mentor other people. You're there to elevate with everyone. So you got to
Mm-hmm.
find a group that, like I said, there's people around you that are going to pour into you and you can pour into them and you all learn together. People who are serious about whatever you're going to whatever you're looking for, people who are going to call you on your bull, people who are going to say, you can't just sit back and chill and listen. Like they're going to ask you like, what did you get out of this? What's your perspective? What have you done in the past couple of days? People aren't just going to let you sit back and like listen and sit there and take notes. No, you got to actually invest in time and pour into it. And that's the type of mastermind groups or accountability partners. If it's not a group, that's
Mm-hmm.
what you want to look for. People who are going to, again, challenge you to be better,
Right. Right. Right.
get you
Right.
out of that comfort zone.
All right. So Marjorie said it's hard because I'm the most organized friend, so I have to remind friends to hold me accountable.
So Marjorie, maybe I mean, if you don't have people around you immediately, maybe it's time for you to invest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to invest. I've invested in a ton of things, a ton of mentors, and it's expedient. When you find the right person, it will pay for itself 10 times over, right? So don't be afraid to get some professional mentor or something like that. Just do
Mm-hmm.
your homework again.
Yeah, she said she was joining one in the earlier
Yeah,
comment, but
yeah.
I just
Oh,
think that just tickled me when she said she had
yeah.
to remind her friends to hold
The
her
whole
accountable.
right. You holding them accountable to hold you
Hold you
accountable. How that
accountable,
work?
right? Poor Marjorie. All right.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard out here, Marjorie. It's hard out here. I get you, sister. So I do consider myself to be an accountability buddy to a few friends, and as well as have a few friends that hold me accountable for various sundry things, kind of informally. But there's a check in. They may have expressed a goal that they're trying to reach, and I will set dates on my calendar to like be like, hey, how you where we at? What we doing? How's
Yeah.
it coming along? And so, just that little nudge will, like get them to the next step. And so, I'm happy to do that. And I do, and like it when people do that to me as well. So again, it doesn't have to be as formal necessarily. So I just want to, encourage us all in that area because again, sometimes
Yeah.
us doing it ourselves, I don't know. It's just again, I'm going back to that original question, like, why aren't we accountable to ourselves sometimes? But like you said, it's
Yeah.
fears, a whole bunch of things going on. So
Right. It's easy to push back the date,
yeah.
like you
Hmm.
just like, yeah, I'll wait, It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's also another step to like the partners and accountability and all that stuff. There's also
Mhm.
something called a goal buddy. And a
A
goal
goal.
buddy is someone
Okay.
who's doing exactly what you want to do. Like say you're starting a business and you're doing it in parallel, right? So you're checking
Hmm.
in, you know what milestones you need to hit. So if you can find someone like that as well, that's another way to take it up. But
So,
even when you're informal, there should be some structure to accountability. Like there should
okay.
be some check-ins. There should be like say, hey, at the end of the week we're gonna talk bi-weekly. You have to have some structure, or else it's just gonna fall apart.
Hmm. Hmm. For sure. So my mom, that was my mama saying yes.
Oh, hey, mama.
That I am an accountability buddy. She is one of my accountability buddies as well. I'll talk to her about various sundry things, and she'll remind me, like, "Did you do this? Did you do that?" And they be like,
That's beautiful.
Yeah." So I
I
appreciate
love it.
it. Indeed, indeed. All right. Well, I think we have covered it. What you think?
I think was great. I mean, we could talk for another hour and a half if you want to.
No, 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 no. We gonna roll wrap it on up. But I think we have covered the high points, and the viewers
Absolutely.
seem to like it. So if you all benefited from this conversation, if you would in the comments, give us a thumbs up, a high five, a church finger, some hearts, something. Let us know. Let us
All
know
right.
if this was beneficial to you, and if you will share this with a friend, a family member, a loved one, someone who you think will benefit from this conversation. All right. I
Right.
see y'all
And
chiming.
hit the follow button for me if y'all don't mind. So
And we
I
about to
would love
get
to
to
have
that
y'all.
next. We about to get to that next. So how can they connect with you, Javon Wooden? How can they
Hey.
connect with you?
Yes, they can hit follow right here on Facebook. I'm on all platforms at Live Not Loathe. That's LIVENOTLOATHE, as you see on the screen. And you
Yeah.
can go to my website, get some freebies, download a couple things.
So y'all follow this brother at Live Not Loathe on social media and livenotloathe.com. Definitely want to support what he has going on. He has a book out. How can they get the book?
Yeah, right. OYK book. That's literally the letters OYK
OYK.
book.com.
Okay.
Yep. On your kingdom.
OYK.com is it?
OYKbook.com.
OYKbook.com. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Put that in
So
the
on your
chat.
kingdom book is what it stands for.
Book.com. All right. And any parting words that you want to give to the peoples out there?
Absolutely. All three of the things we just talked about, forgiving yourself, believing in yourself, and accountability, just really think about that and what that looks like for you. So belief, if you struggle with belief, reach out to me. No charge, just reach out, DM me, whatever. We have a conversation. If you are struggling with forgiving yourself, you may look at professional help, maybe a therapist, right? Look to talk to
Mhm.
someone who has an unbiased perspective, who can help guide you, have some exercises, some resources. And then when it comes to accountability, well, everyone on this call can be accountability partners. We can start our own mastermind, right? It's not that hard, right? So just look at to your left and your right, see who you're looking at, who can really pour into you and you're willing to pour into them, and then start your own thing.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Great advice. So, of course, I have got to share with folks that Conversations with Nicole is on YouTube. Many of you are watching on YouTube, but if you have not subscribed, please do so. Subscribing and supporting, and we need all the support we can get. We are also on Roku TV via the Greater Works Network. So add us, add GWN as a Roku channel on your TV, or download the app, Greater Works Network, which is absolutely free for iPhone and Android. And watch some of these shows. Listen, got a lot of content out there. And we are focused on Black and Brown mental health specifically because we want you to be well and get your checkup from the neck up. And so most times we have counselors and therapists, but sometimes we have life coaches like Javon. And Javon brought a good word tonight, okay? So again, support, 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 because we are all we got, and we got to support each
Absolutely.
other. All right, we got to support
Absolutely.
each other. So Javon, my brother, I appreciate you. I thank you. I wish you well with all of your endeavors, and you got to come back, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm down whenever.
All right,
I
y'all heard it
appreciate
here.
you as well. Thank you so much
Absolutely,
for having
my
me on.
pleasure.
Thank you to everyone who checked it out.
Mhm.
Well wishes to all of you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, good people. I'll be here. Well, not conversation with Nicole, but Singles Mingle tomorrow. Got a great conversation with an author, and that'll be at 8:30. And then Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday, we have Sister Natasha Lamb, and we're gonna be talking about de-escalating in a crisis. De-escalating in a crisis. She got a whole curriculum around that.
Mhm.
So calm cues is what she calls it. So it should be interesting. And then Friday, for those of you who might not be on the rest of the week, DJ Demp is on my regular season Conversations with Nicole YouTube and on the Greater Words Network. So tune in. All right, y'all have a good night and we'll see y'all later. Peace.
Blessings. Peace.